As the holiday wears on, things get a little bit more crazy. I'm now in my second week of holiday and I'm already wearing my wife's dress. Whatever you want to make of that. Anyways, today we get into the second of the habits. Yeah, let me change. One sec. Much better. Still from last week, my obligatory Apfelschorle drink. Still tastes amazing for being 1 week old. Joking. So in last week's video, I already told you guys that I'm on holiday now for 3 weeks. And I didn't want to leave you hanging out dry, not having any new content that I would have created for you guys while I'm on holiday. So this week, I promised you that we have another story from one of our club members. And this time we're talking about Stephanie Harris from the US. She is not only a long-standing, valued community member, Stephanie is also the buddy mentor. So for everyone who comes into the community, we have the possibility to pair them up with a buddy so that you go through your journey with someone else and share all the experiences and support each other. Fantastic concept, and Stephanie manages the buddy system for us because as a single entrepreneur, I can't manage everything inside the club, and I'm fortunate enough to have so many amazing people in there. So therefore, today we share Stephanie's story, Stephanie's success story from inside our club, the director's cut. I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Stephanie's habituation journey. If you want to ask Stephanie questions directly or get paired in the buddy space, head over to www.MyTinnitus.Club. In the link to the description is also a link to my free 4-day email course. So let's get started with the director's cut of Stephanie's story inside our program and her habituation journey. Enjoy. Welcome. It's great to be back for all of you guys. Today with me I have Stephanie Harris from the US. Just maybe to say a little bit, I met Stephanie already quite a while ago. She's a very valued member of our online Tinnitus Club, and Stephanie is almost a co-host by now because she takes care of many of the members herself. She's always there in the meetings. She's connecting with these members, offering her support and insights into having had tinnitus for such a long time. But you know, before I talk to you about you so long, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, Stephanie?
Yes, I'm Stephanie Harris. I live in the state of Virginia in the U.S. I'm a retired educator, school librarian. This is my third year out from teaching school. I developed tinnitus almost 5 years ago. Habituated once and then lost that habituation about 2 years in. And that's what brought me to this club a little over a year ago now.
Yeah. And I remember it was, yeah, exactly, also in winter about a year ago. And that was kind of the time where we started connecting, where you came into the club. And since then, what would you say? What are some of the learnings from your journey with tinnitus, but maybe also a little bit with the club, but more so like, what have you learned for yourself? Because I've seen you like, and you've shared this yourself, you've made a big progress. Not only, I mean, that's also never only the credit of any one factor, but many factors coming together. So just for the people out there, what has been helpful and useful for you in your journey to recognize with tinnitus? Not even so much from a perspective of the tools and stuff like that, but really just from your personal journey, and you know, also with a perspective of giving people out there hope and, you know, sharing what they can expect in terms of a habituation journey from your perspective.
Well, I will say the first time I habituated, I don't really know what I did to habituate, and I don't know what I did to lose it either. So, you know, initially you struggle with that. And so with the second go round, first off, I did take a mindfulness class from a therapist here in the US who teaches mindfulness with tinnitus. He also has tinnitus. And that kind of got me started on this idea of being present, being grateful, you know, taking in those moments of life and tinnitus being with you on that. versus, struggling against it. However, you also get on this train of thought that you want things fixed, you want things stopped.
Mm.
And so I still struggled with that. While I felt like I was at a place where I was able to calm my body, it was still those thoughts and emotions that
Mm.
I was stuck on. And
Mm.
so that's when I sought out your help. And, initially, speaking with you, I just really, really felt how devoted you were to this work and how passionate you were about, meeting with us as individuals, but then also creating this community support because you you don't have that. And sometimes people, when you talk to other people about having tinnitus, they'll be like, oh yeah, I have that, but I just ignore it. Well, and I could maybe say that now too, but initially when you start, that's a very hard thing to hear. And so it's very nice to have not only your individual coaching, but that community support so that, you do have a place where you can vent some of that. Um, and so that was really important to me. I, I think early on with you, I had joined one of the community groups, and this is why I think the community part is so important. And it was about non-goals.
Mm.
And that struck so hard with me because I think that was my sticking point was I gotta have an end point because in life, I think so much of what you do, even though it's a whole journey, there still are end points. You finish school, you finish college, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you retire. Like there's always these end points. And so for me, that was what I was seeking, an end point because I felt like I had experienced it before. And so I really had to do work in changing my mindset after hearing that it's not about an end point. It's about being okay with this, no matter what it is. It might be there all the time. I might hear it all the time, but that's okay. It's not preventing me from everything going on in my life and those still other journeys I want to take or those other things I want to have in my life that I don't have to be in this despair of this is going to control me anymore or that I can't do anything else until I reach habituation or this end point. And that was really a big turning time for me. And it really changed my whole mindset on a lot of things. I had already started doing things like morning sunlight and gratitude time, meditations, mindfulness within my regular day. Um, but I had put those in place because I thought they would help with tinnitus.
Mm.
And then once I had that turning point, I realized it's not just the tinnitus. Those things do well for me for my entire person of who
Mm.
I am. And so again, that was another change for me with that mindset. And so when I started doing those things for me, not just for the tinnitus, I think that just helped everything kind of come along even better so that now, yes, I can sit here and talk to you about my tinnitus and I'm okay. People will say, "Oh, do you hear it all the time?" I can say, well, "Yeah, it's there and it's loud, or most of the day I forget about it. But if it wants to take my priority or my attention, I kind of know what to do with that." Um, and so I think coming from within your group, one of the biggest things, I had the mindfulness piece, but I needed that ACT piece as well. And so that acceptance to this is what it is, and that commitment to this is what I will do for my life. We're gonna, I'm gonna be okay. And
Mm.
that that piece truly helped. So this idea of not having this goal, this end point you have to reach, and then also that acceptance and commitment. And I've talked to people before on here about, you talked about having your key with ACT, and mine, of course, was, singing songs and or snippets to songs like, Pink's "So What," and the Beatles' "Let It Be." And I can remember early on that was like every moment of my day until eventually, you don't have to rely on that. But, if I have a moment where I feel like tinnitus wants to intrude, it's there for me to pull on very quickly. So that's kind of when we talk about having those tools in your tool belt, that's something that's there. But, again, hard work, because those things that I did put in my life, I had to practice not only in the times when I needed it, but also good times. And I think sometimes we forget that when our day is going well, those things that are important in our journey need to be there then too, so that when you are having a hard day, it's quickly at your disposal to reach in your brain and pull it out and use it. So that's kind of what I have learned and used. And probably the other thing is I just got tired. I got tired of tinnitus being a priority in my life. Plain and simple. I just got tired of it being a priority. I got tired of it taking up so much time in my thoughts. And so I think some people kind of reach that point too, where you're just like, I'm done with this, and I'm gonna move it on down somewhere else in my list of priorities, because it's taking too much of my valuable time in the present and in the moment. But that's that's a mindset change on many levels, and that's a hard mental, which, I talked, before we started the recording, that is a piece that is hard sometimes for people to understand when initially they get tinnitus, because they just want that quick fix versus, it's going to be a journey.
Yeah.
And a big acceptance.
Whole process works. In terms of like from the group structure, from the learning structure, etc. How have you experienced all of that for yourself? I mean, you had that previous knowledge of mindfulness, etc. But a combination of all of these things together, how did that bring your habituation journey to you? So how did that? Do you understand the question?
Well, I think again, going back to that sense of community. So the community meetings are so important, because we are able to discuss not only what's going well, but also our frustrations. And so you're able to provide feedback on that, but also the community members are able to provide encouragement, but also things that they've tried, or the empathy that, yes, they've been going through this too, and how can we help each other? And that is, as I said, that is key to, I think, coming along on this journey, so that you don't feel so alone. And one of the things I like about the community support too is how we have been able to, and you've structured topics in relation to tinnitus. And I like the community aspect where you've also incorporated the topics that, not only infuse it with tinnitus itself, but then also how those are incorporated into life in general. I know the stoicism one, I just really love that. And I really have taken that on personally a little bit just from that. And I just love how to apply that to life as well. So not just with, my tinnitus journey, but so that, I think that's why the community meetings and that group that you provide, that weekly group you provide, is just so important to the habituation, because it's that sense of other people with you in all parts of the world are experiencing what you are, and what they can offer as their help and their support, along with your knowledge and what you have to offer too.
And my question to you, from, this is really like it's sort of like an inside question. What did you think about the community when you first joined it, and how did that view maybe change over the month or the year?
Well, I guess initially, when you're going through the emotions and thoughts of tinnitus, you want to grasp on something so hard. So I think coming in, I was willing to be a part of anything, knowing that maybe it was going to, help me with, what I was struggling with. But then once you get in there and the wealth of information that is provided by you in the community, you can't help but want to stay. And then you also become, in a sense, this online family per se, because it's not only that we're sharing what we are going through with our tinnitus, but also other facets of our life, our kids, our families, our jobs, the weather, whatever it might be, because that is what makes this, I think, so fascinating too, is that we are worldwide. And, I just love that about when you really talk community, that is, you can't beat that. I mean, you can't beat the fact that every Thursday we're holding hands across the world, for lack of sounding silly, I guess, but, and lifting each other up and, under your guidance, getting the tools and the help that we need. So that, uh, that has kept me here. And, I know during my days, my mornings, I do think about each day, some of the same members or different members, and hoping that their journeys are progressing like they want, because I think you do feel a sense of you want whoever is in this group to be the best possible version of themselves they can, even with the tinnitus.
If people are considering it, but they're a little bit afraid, like, oh, what is this going to be, a community? And is it not going to make my tinnitus worse when I, engage with people who also have tinnitus, and then I'm constantly thinking about it? These two things, from a perspective of your personal tinnitus journey, I've talked about mine plenty. People don't want to hear that anymore. They want to hear from fresh people who haven't been on my podcast and on my channel. So these two questions, what is your opinion?
So I would say the first question, if you are initially starting out with your journey of tinnitus, try to give yourself the gift of time and self-compassion, because this is a road that requires hard work. And it's not something that is going to be fixed overnight. So if you can try to give yourself that those two gifts of, this will take time, and don't beat yourself up about what you did, what you didn't do, what you need to do, what you should do, how you're feeling, because that's all natural and what is going on when tinnitus initially, takes a hold of you. I mean, there's no other way to say that, because it does.
True.
So that would probably be for that first question. The second question, if you are contemplating being a part of this group, starting this group, don't even hesitate. This was the thing. This group, this community was the thing that moved me forward. I had progressed, but to move me to where I wanted to be with how I viewed tinnitus and how I lived with tinnitus, this group did this for me. And what is nice is you can come to the meetings and you can be as quiet as you want, and you can talk as much as you want. But in doing that, you get your questions answered. You get real examples of what to put into place that, are not relying on sound therapy or devices or pills or whatever. And I'm not saying not to use those because, as I said, I think assistance is great, and that's what gets you to a place of, the body in check and the emotions in check. But, it's at some point also some things you have to come off of reliance on, and make it more about what you are doing internally. So that's where the group, and the community really helps. So if you, are thinking about it, no need to think about it. It's just join, because I think you will benefit somehow, some way, whether it's small ways, big ways, but that inevitable journey you have to be on with tinnitus, you're going to have the support you need.
Nice. Thank you. And I can only add, and this is me adding for you basically, that you went from getting this help to supplying that help for people in there. And that I think is a very powerful process of rounding off a habituation journey where people, decide to continue their journey inside the club to help other people who are early on in the process. And that is something I think is incredibly valuable, and that enables us to offer something that is literally unique. You don't have that in any other CBT app or app where you sit down and you talk, or with just a therapist or something. There is nothing else. This is a unique thing.
And it's really frustrating. I know, at least here in the US, and particularly the area I'm in, there's, even if you try to seek out, initially, I did see a psychologist, and he did have tinnitus himself. So that was a plus, but still just your day-to-day things. But he was pretty well habituated. So when you're right in the midst of it, sometimes someone who's far along in the habituation, have already been habituated for lots and lots of years, they can't always bring themselves back to that point. We do talk about how that some of us still go back to that trauma of those initial feelings, but once you're so far along, sometimes you can't. And so, I know here in the US, trying to find just someone to talk with about it versus just being told it'll get okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, but I need help getting to the okay part. And so again, that's where the club helps. And I think most importantly for me, another thing is, as I said, I had habituated once. Never, never, ever did I think I would have to do it again. And I think that was probably the scariest thing at that moment, was how did I lose it? But now sitting here after doing the work and being a part of this community, I know that on those days where tinnitus may want to become a priority again, I know what to do. So losing habituation, gaining habituation, this I'm not scared of that anymore, as I was, because I now know that second time I lost the habituation, it was because I heard it and it seemed a little louder. It wanted to take priority, and then I let my brain run with it. And that's where the loss of habituation came. And so I now know that I know what to do now. I know what to do now, because I wasn't, I hadn't faced that before. The first time, I don't even know how I habituated. And then when it hit me that second time, it was like, what did I do? But now when I can reflect back, I know what I did. I let my brain go right back where it was that very first time, those feelings, the emotions, the way my body responded, and I just let it take me on down. And so now I know, if I let, as tinnitus wants to take priority day to day, well, I know what to do. And so I'm not fearful of losing habituation again.
Nice.
Per se.
Well, Stephanie, it's been a huge pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, for giving us such a deep insight in your own habituation journey, for being really honest and truthful with the struggle you've experienced, and that, yeah, there are still those days in which tinnitus can come to the forefront and bug us a little bit. But it's not really something to be very fearful about if we know how to handle it. And if we know that we have a group of people in our back who have our back, that we can discuss this with, that we are not alone on this journey, and that we will always have this support. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing all of that with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for tuning into Stephanie's story. I am here with my little drink. Watching that and severely or very much enjoyed what Stephanie had to share with us. I hope that it was useful and helpful for you guys out there as well on your tinnitus habituation journey. It is my pleasure, it is my profession to be doing this, to help people habituate to tinnitus without needing to buy thousands of dollars worth of hearing aids that in the end are not even properly fitted, but just do some sound masking, and it's a whole thing, you guys know that. Anyways, I'm not saying hearing aids are a bad thing, not at all. I'm saying they are a bad thing if you... Anyways, I've did a whole other video a few weeks ago on when hearing aids actually help for tinnitus, and you can go back and watch that, and there'll be maybe a couple of informational and insightful things in there. But I hope that you enjoyed this interview that I did with Stephanie on her tinnitus habituation journey. I'm going to be on holiday for one more week, so therefore we have Rick's habituation journey next. So Rick was on our club for a few months ago. He left a few months ago because we're feeling fully habituated. Let me know what you thought of the Stephanie story. Subscribe and like, and visit us as MyTinnitus.Club if you want to join the 12 weeks program. Apart from that, I wish you all the best from my holidays to you. I'll see you then, and let's figure out what I'm wearing next week. Bye bye.